Okay, guys, this was epic. This was something I was not expecting. This made my day last night when I was just sitting here at my computer, just trying to find new videos to watch. And then this video popped up. And I'm like, where the heck did this come from? So, the reason that this video was highly important, and I think this video is truly a blessing and amazing, I think it needs to be spread out to a lot of people, is because it's coming from a background that I'm well known with. It's coming from the gaming background. And I think a lot of the issues that's happening in the world right now, especially when it comes to your understanding the faith and walking with God, is that it's easy to get caught up in a culture, and then you begin to idolize the culture, and then you start dabbling into things that you normally don't dabble into before, and then because you start doing these things in your mind, it just starts to become okay, when ultimately us living in that type of lifestyle is contradictory to the way that God wants us to live. And I know that a lot of people, especially in the gaming culture, they want to, the kind of mindset that they have is that, oh, well, I'm doing what I want to. There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing or the things that I like. The problem is that the things that you like is taking away the time that you're thinking about God, that you're living a lifestyle that God wants you to do. And that's not how we're supposed to live. That's not how we should be living. And not only that, the gaming culture tends to take up a lot of unnecessary time that takes away from God, takes away from family, takes away from a lot of things. But in our minds, we think it's okay because we kind of use it as an scapegoat. We use it to get away from reality in a lot of places. And I know because I've been a gamer since I was 5 years old with Super Mario when it came out on NES. I've been a gamer all throughout my life. And now there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with gaming. But like with other things, how far are you taking it? How much of your time is it taking over? What are the things that you're taking part in that's contradictory to what God, or what is the things that you're taking part in that's then leading you into temptation for a lot of stuff? So the video that we have here is from Silent Bell, and it said my testimony. And I'm like, hold on, what's going on here? So before we start the video, the mindset that we want to keep while we're listening to her testimony, let's go with Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Oh my gosh, that verse is just perfect and lines completely with this testimony. Is crazy. And also 1 John 2:15-17. Do not love the world or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love for the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever desires the will of God abides forever. The thing that I'm realizing is that a lot of people, not even just in the gaming culture, but a lot of people are having their desires here on this earth, and they're okay with that, and they'll deny God. But it's like, I like to relate our relationship with God with, of course, the relationship with our parents. We live in our parents' households, and of course, we all have our own individual, own uniqueness. And then eventually there'll be times when a lot of people, a lot of young people, they'll rebel against their parents. They'll rebel, they'll see things differently, and then they just don't align with the way that the parents want to have things in their household. So they end up moving out. And that happens, and that's okay. But the difference between your father, whose house that you live in, your biological father, and the Father that's in heaven, is that once we die, our only next residency is going to be in hell if we don't accept Jesus Christ. And not only that, live the way that God wants us to live. He doesn't want us to be living out in structures. The reason that the Old Testament was given a whole bunch of rules was because we were living in sin. Notice that there was very little rules that was given to Adam and Eve when they were in the Garden of Eden. It wasn't until after sin had happened, and after all of these people were being put on this earth, and then they were all just like acting wild. Read the Bible. You'll see how crazy these people were back in the day. This is why God has given us instructions on how to live. And notice that it all comes with our relations with one another. So without further ado, I've already talked too much. Let's just go ahead and get into the video, see this testimony, and we'll talk about, I'm good, trying not to talk too much about everything, but key points that struck out to me. Now, for those of you that do not know, this is called a V streamer. A V streamer, I think, is essentially a virtual streamer. So this is the avatar of the girl who's putting up her testimony. Normally you have streamers, you see their face and stuff like that, but this is essentially an avatar where when she starts talking, you're going to see her mouth move as if she's talking. This is just a design, all that stuff, and people can have it custom created to whichever they like. This is something that I've just learning, I don't want to say too much as of recently, but the latter years of me being a heavy gamer and whatnot. So this is definitely a thing. A lot of people don't know it's a thing, but I mean, a lot of people don't know about the gaming culture. But let's go ahead and see what she has to say.
Testimony, essentially. This morning, there was a YouTube video posted about me, and the creator of that video, super sweet. I talked to them personally. They were super sweet in taking it down, but it had a lot of incorrect information as I keep just trying to go on with my life. I've been putting off talking about my testimony, but I guess it's about time I do it now. I may go off on little rants, and I apologize for that. I'm filled with a lot of emotions. It was one of those things where I felt like no matter how hard I'm trying to just better myself, people still want to bring up things that doesn't matter anymore. Or they want to make assumptions that they shouldn't without asking me. And it sucks. So, for starters, I grew up in a very loving household, no problems. I grew up believing in God and knowing that He created me and created everything, but I was never raised in church to read the Bible or really much anything along those lines. I had a children's Bible when I was a kid that my dad used to actually get me to read almost every night. So it was more of Christian morals, but not really being told to really follow Christ. Leading up to this point, I, naturally when you go into your teenager phase, you're rebellious, you don't care. You go through life doing dumb stuff. Junior high, I went through a lot of sexual harassment. Then high school came along and I decided to live all throughout high school as a boy, essentially, quote unquote, thinking I was trans. Obviously, I'm not. I lived through high school just as a boy, thinking I was trans. When I left high school, went to college, I eventually came out of that and realized that was more out of just trauma of the things that I went through. I was in an abusive relationship. I grew out of that, came back to being my girly self, but also still a very heavy tomboy. 2020 was probably where a lot of things kicked off for me and started. 2020. I got diagnosed with a chronic disease. It's called Graves' disease, and that's basically a permanent version of hyperthyroidism. My thyroid gland don't work. That's when I kind of started trying to be in touch with God, because after that moment, and it is unfortunate that it happened at this moment where I was essentially at one point close to death, I prayed every night that God would keep me alive and I'd be healthy again and He'd fix me and all these things, praying to God, just please save me. Please help me make my body well again, because I didn't know what was wrong with me at the time. I went 2 weeks not eating. The most I would eat in a day for 2 weeks straight would be a singular banana, cup of oranges, and 2 slices of bread every day. That's how my body stayed alive in that moment. Eventually found out what was wrong with me. I thank God that I did come out of that. But at the time I didn't, I wasn't giving myself to Him. When I started being a VTuber, I did what every VTuber does, or majority of VTubers do. You sexualize yourself and your model to get the attention of other people. Did that a lot. even had a fansly for like hentai and stuff of my model. And thankfully, I wasn't doing anything physically to myself. I do regret them now. My current relationship with my boyfriend helped me realize a lot of things were wrong, between enabling people's porn addictions. Felt so wrong because I noticed my relationship was kind of built on that very hypersexual foundation. Eventually it came to me like telling him that like, hey, I'm stopping this completely. I feel wrong doing it, and it would be better for both me and you if also like while I quit my stuff that you quit your stuff. We'll not get into his side of things, but we had to work through that. Took a while. We're in a better spot now, but porn damaged my relationship a lot, damaged me a lot. And at the time, I was using a model that basically looked like I was wearing a bunny suit. I'm gonna see if I have a image I can put for educational purposes. Let me see. This was my model before this one. Basically, a bunny suit with some kimono sleeves. I was working on a different outfit, and like VTuber models, they take time and money. So what I did in the meantime is I had an arm toggle for that model where she was basically crossing her arms, and I used that toggle 24/7 while I was working on this model. And this model, some of you remember, or initially did have larger breasts. I didn't create this outfit even for the intention of being inappropriate. I just thought it looked cool. But of course, when my model already had bigger breasts, it looked inappropriate and actually was never meant to exist like that in the first place. My model got heavily exaggerated. I always wanted my model to reflect me and how I am in real life. Be real. I'm small. Leave it at that. I have nothing. The fact that that happened at the time, like I should have corrected it, but then I was just like, well, we're in this far. I'm in this far, whatever. Just keep going with it. As I was starting to like think about God a little more as I moved away from doing NSFW. I started thinking about God more and wanting to go back to church. Didn't know which church to go to, honestly, because there's a lot of churches near me. I was at work, and my coach that was training me at the time for bodybuilding, he came up to me, and I was telling him that like I'd been wanting to go to church, and he invited me to his church. And he said he's like, we do young adults on Tuesday nights if you want to join me next week, blah, blah, blah. And I told them, like, at the time I was working Tuesdays. So I told them, I was like, I think I worked that day, but I don't know, like, let me look. And I double checked the schedule. By some random thing, my name was crossed out on Tuesday and replaced with someone else's name. I saw that, showed it to him on the schedule, and we both looked at each other and knew exactly that God was like telling me like, hey, time for you to come. I started going to church with them. This was last year in about September-ish. I had been going to this church for a while, started kind of doing things myself and trying to grow in my faith, as well as like taking the moment to correct some things about myself, because I still like swore a little bit in my streams, but I was trying to change my content. Eventually, I had a moment where I was like, I think I want to, share with my community and the internet that I was changing what I was doing with my life. And so I made a post on Instagram about being a Christian VTuber. And at the time, this was when my model still had the big boobs and everything. That gained more traction than I could even think of on Instagram. And that's how I got a lot of the following I have now. That video right now has 1.2 million views. Wild that happened. But a lot from that was a lot of super sweet people, but also a lot of people commenting about my model, saying that it was lustful and inappropriate and demonic and all these things, like every insult under the sun you could think of. The conviction hit me before that video I posted, but I didn't want my model to stop me from speaking my truth and sharing. So I, shared anyways. Because of that, I met so many amazing people like Celeste, Marshall, my mods that are now my friends even. Like I met so many amazing people because I didn't weight. And then after that, I posted a community funding thing to help me get model changes. And along with the new model, I changed this current model, my techwear model, and raised money to get a new model. And now my model that I use all the time looks like this. It's still the same outfit, still the same kind of bodysuit underneath, but it has heavily decreased boobs and a jacket that zips up. This is how I look. I used the jacket zipped up because honestly, once I saw it, it looked really cool. And I was like, yeah, I'm chilling with this. At first, I did try to I tried changing the bodysuit. I went to the person who helped me design her, and I was like, how can we change this bodysuit without ruining the vibe? And then eventually, like, we tried messing with ideas, and she was like, girly, your character has a jacket. Just zip it up. And I was like, oh yeah, I do have a jacket. I'll just zip it up. And now I look like this. And I really like it. And while I fully agree that the bodysuit isn't the most appropriate, the issue of the design of it is obviously within the chest area and how it's literally just sheer fabric with pieces of cloth kind of crisscrossing each other. I couldn't figure out a way to change that and be cost effective, so we just zipped up the jacket. And I keep the jacket toggle on and zipped up because while me personally, the bodysuit of my outfit doesn't bother me and doesn't get in my way of my walk with Christ, I understand that people struggle with lust in different ways. And people struggle with lust very heavily when it comes to 2D images, oddly enough, as I used to capitalize on that sin that people cave into all the time. So, out of respect for other people, I keep my jacket zipped up. I could have very easily just said, you have a problem with it, you deal with it. That's not what we're supposed to do as Christians. If something we do causes another Christian, another brother or sister to stumble, we need to make sure we are not doing that. Near them, around them, whatever. My personal life, what I do affects me differently. That's just it. I don't get turned on or anything by a 2D image, but other people do. So I will do my best to make sure I'm not a problem for them. So I don't want to be an obstacle for other people. The next, I guess, hot topic of my model is why I'm a dragon. I know that the Bible has a lot of imagery and depictions of dragons that are not used in a good way. The devil's described as a dragon. The Leviathan is a dragon, if I'm correct. I've not read my entire Bible, so forgive me if my information is wrong. I like dragons. I am a firm believer of just because some kind of species was used to depict evil within the Bible doesn't make that species directly evil. It's all about your context. Because, like, Satan presented himself in the Garden of Eden as a serpent, a snake. That doesn't make every single snake evil. I like snakes. Snakes are adorable little boogers. And goats are cool also. But a goat is also often used to depict Satan, or as like a half goat thing. But that doesn't make the species evil. And it's all about context. My inspiration for being a dragon is, for one, I'm an ice dragon. I'm not a dragon that has 7 heads and 10 horns, like in Revelation, I think it was. I don't breathe fire. I am a fluffy ice dragon. My inspiration was the Light Fury from How to Train Your Dragon and Eastern culture dragons, Chinese dragons. So they're just little fluffy boogers. I'm literally just a fluffy noodle with ice. That's my context of my dragon. And that's why I don't feel convicted to change the species. I've felt convicted by God to change certain aspects of my model, and I prayed so many times about my model. I asked for God to, if there is anything about my model that I need to fix, I pray that you reveal that to me. And moving forward with future outfits will make sure that modesty is preserved. And with this model, I kept the aesthetic, kept the integrity of the design, but zipped up my jacket and decreased my boobs. I never felt the need to ditch my horns, ditch my tail, and become a different species. I've thought about it, and if I were to ever change my species, I think it'd be a cat. All I do now is I just try my best to do God's will for my life and to keep bettering myself to be more Christ-like. And I don't think people should assume that VTubers, especially because there's a lot of VTubers now coming out about their faith, and I think that's amazing. It's good to have discernment. We shouldn't immediately just shoot someone down. Everyone's at different parts of their walk, and for some, it's going to take them a while to get where they need to be. I am grateful that I was able to make the changes that I made as fast as I did, but I was also very determined. Some people may not be ready, and I thank my community for helping me get these changes funded and made. But just because someone's in a different spot doesn't mean we need to push them out. And that's something I still need to remind myself of, is the reason why a lot of people feel driven away from the Christian community is because of other believers. It's not because of Jesus. It's because of other people. And then you have to kind of remind yourself it's not Jesus's fault. It's man's fault. I try to not let man get in my way of pursuing Jesus. I got a problem with man, I got a problem with man, but I need to stay with Jesus. It's a man moment, certified man moment.
So I'm gonna go ahead and try to do this quickly. There was so much that was going on in this video, and I even commented that there's just so much to unpack. But I'm gonna try to do this very quickly. So the first thing I want to put up is that it's amazing how she was given Christian morals and values, but wasn't told to follow Christ. This is something that happens in a lot of churches, which is why we have to be very careful and very mindful, have discernment when we're deciding to go to church, which church we're going to choose to serve with and try to be more Christ-like with. Because based off of their theology, based off of everything that they're teaching, if they're not teaching what Christ told us specifically to do and what the Apostle Paul and Peter told us specifically to do, which is to believe that Jesus died for our sins and then follow the instructions that was given by Jesus and then see exactly how the world was in the Old Testament, then we're kind of not doing the whole Christian thing. Your salvation doesn't come from being a good Christian or just following the Christian morals. If you don't believe in Jesus and what he did for us, then you're missing step one. You know what it is? You know what I mean? And that's kind of what happens with a lot of people. And I'm just glad that she was able to realize that over the years. It's tough when you're just given the values, but not understanding why is it that we do the things that we do. And it was just another thing that I wanted to point out really quickly. Don't want to touch on it too much because it's still a little touchy subject, but it's very interesting how, we say plenty of times in the past, well, not in the past, but at least as of recently, when it comes to the LGBTQ community, a lot of people like to say that this is just who I am type thing. But I think if we can come to a more common ground in understanding that this isn't who everybody just is. I'm not going to sit here and say that those that are gay weren't born gay because I don't know what that process is like. I don't know how that situation is, and I haven't done necessarily the research, but we've heard testimony straight from here how she thought that she was trans when she was in high school, but that was based off of the trauma and the harassment that she experienced. But a lot of people in that community isn't going to admit that. And a lot of people that isn't part of that community but defends them isn't going to admit that. But we need to be more cognizant about the situation and understanding, just evaluating our life and how we got here and how is it that we're choosing to live and how we should be living. But anyways, moving on. It's very interesting how when she found out that she had Crohn's disease, that was when she really decided to search for God. I mean, that happens to a lot of people when they get caught in worse situations, when they get caught with diseases. Then it's like, all right, now I need to rely on something that is bigger than me, bigger than this world, because as if right now I have no hope. There's no hope. And when you remember there's a God that is in heaven. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that God is just going to heal you from all things, because that's up for God to determine that. But the important thing is that we rely on our hope, but then we cast all our burdens into God, so that even regardless of the situations that we're in, the storms that we're in, all the ailments that we're in, we know that God is in control of everything. And so all of that heartbreak, all of that anguish, all of the fear is just gone. That's what happens when we truly follow and believe and have faith in God. We're not sitting here and saying that everything's just going to be taken away from us. That's not how God operates. That's not what the Bible said how God operates. When the storms come and we have Christ as our firm foundation, then when the storm leaves, we're still standing strong. That's biblical. That's worth searching God for, because there's going to be storms. Everybody will tell you there's going to be storms in the world. There's nothing that's just going to relieve the storms. Something's going to happen at some point. But who do you believe in and who do you trust in that's allowing you to stand firm through the storms and then be able to give God the glory because he allowed you to get through that storm. That's what's important. And again, the gaming community, it's tough. And the thing about the gaming community is that it wasn't always just sexualized, or at least not that I remember. It's as things are starting to progress. I mean, as we know, sex sells. And it happened to seep its way into video games where sex is starting to get more ridiculous. Bigger boobs, bigger, buttocks and all that stuff, slim waist, all that stuff. And then, all of those voice noises and moanings and all that crap. It's starting to become heavy in the gaming industry, which has really caused me to take notice of this stuff. And like, yo, I can't, it's gotten to a point where a lot of games I just can't play because this overly sexualized. And I'm not going to sit here and allow myself to be tempted because I'm looking at people are like, oh, people are really getting turned on by these characters and stuff like that. But this is a testimony for myself as well. Being in that community, I just always thought that, it's just a cartoon. It's not even real people. So I'm okay. But the problem was the temptation was coming into my mind and taking over my thoughts. And now I'm putting time into looking at all of these cartoon characters that are half naked and stuff like that. And that's not okay. Even with, Japanese shows, it's starting to become over sexualized to where a lot of shows I just don't watch anymore, which is unfortunate because the shows that I love, but they're just starting to get too ridiculous with it. And it sucks because I love the art. I love the stories. I just love a lot of stuff about anime. But once it starts to get sexualized, God is more important to me than anime. So if it's keeping me from God, then I just got to get rid of it, unfortunately. So there's a lot of shows that I've been missing out on. But at the end of the day, the shows aren't going to give me my salvation. So sticking with that same topic, it's very good that she realized that the bunny suit image was very revealing. And I'm glad that she was able to see and evaluate the situation and how it could set people back. Yeah, let's get that part out. So the next part I want to bring up is that how, she managed to really think about God and really think about church. And it's crazy because once you start thinking about God and you ask for more, he'll give you more in ways that you didn't think. As she said, she was working out and her fitness partner or her fitness trainer was the one that is saying, hey, we have a youth service or a youth ministry that you could come to. And normally during that time frame and schedule, she would have been working. But it just so happens, a lot of people say coincidentally, that she happened to have her name crossed off for that day and that she was able to go. That doesn't sound like a coincidence. Once you really start wanting to learn more about God and you internalize that you want to know more and you feel like there's something out there that you need to be doing, God will make a way. He'll always make a way. And a lot of times it's going to be ways that we don't expect, by no means whatsoever. My relationship with God increased after I had to leave the church that I was at. Nothing against the church that I was at, but there was that moment that I recall vividly when I'm like, there has to be more. There's something that I'm missing, something that I'm not understanding. God, show me what it is that I need to know. Well, show me how is it that I can increase my relationship with you. And boom, next thing I know, I'm at another church, but now my relationship with God is on a whole completely different level than what it was 2 years ago. But you really have to want to search it, desire more, and he'll give it to you. And the other thing that I noticed, I didn't have it up, and I don't remember at what part it was, so I'm not going to try and look for it. But there was somebody in the comments section that mentioned that they too were also struggling with porn, but it was very influential that Silent Bell was actually talking about her situation and how she overcame it. And the person was saying how they're still struggling with it and stuff like that. And it's like the thing about porn, and that's a huge testimony, talking about that you were watching porn, because that's something that a lot of people just don't find, a good thing to be doing. And it's not, because you're condoning in the act of people living in sin, essentially. So when we get into those situations where people are stuck in the same emotions and can't just get relief from watching porn, again, when we ask God to help find ways to get us to relieve these things, and we are obedient with the way that God tells us, hey, this is how you're going to get rid of it, and gives us the solution, and we become obedient with it, that's when we'll be relieved. I was struggling with that for years. And I found certain solutions, but to me, I'm just like, I'll find another way. But then that's when I'm like, all right, this is definitely becoming an issue because now it's affecting my marriage. I need to find the solution. And God gave me that reminder, hey, you should probably do this. And so I did talk to somebody about it, one of my pastors that I trusted with the situation, because he talked about how him too was actually struggling with it. And I talked to him and then I was hit with that conviction. That conviction is what really allowed me to really go cold turkey on it. And I've been free from it and have felt, of course, there's always a temptation to do it. But then I get that spark in my head that's just like, nah, bro, that's not what we do anymore. And I'm able to continue to live forward. And a lot of people think, oh, that can't be me. That can't be me. Stop living with this mindset that can't be you. That can be you. You just have to keep trying to do better and find ways and be obedient when God gives you the solution. And you'll know when you'll get the solution. Now, I think it was a beautiful on what she did and the way that her mindset was, because there was this one lady, I forgot who it was. She's a rapper and she got online and she was talking about Nick Jones and his video about her, and Nick Jones reacted to it and said that that was not his intention to kind of, be one of those people that give a lot of backlash about her switching over her faith and like trying to find Christ, but then still kind of living the same lifestyle that she was living type thing. And the thing is, when you live in a community, when you're with a community and you have a fan base about whatever it is that you're doing, once you start talking about stuff, especially Christ goes against so many cultures that is ridiculous. So the second you start talking about Christ, that means they're going to stop doing this. They're going to stop doing that. They're going to stop speaking like this. And then they're trying to talk proper and try to encourage me. And I'm not here for the encouragement. I'm just here for the vibes. I'm here for the entertainment. And that's going to happen. There's going to be backlash. So the woman that Nick Jones was doing the video on, she had mentioned him and saying how, like, ever since I became Christian and started, trying to express my faith, she's been getting a whole bunch of backlash, and it really hurt her. It is, but once you start talking about, and it says this in the Bible in John 15:18-19, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. So the thing about that is, the world is going to hate us because we follow Christ in a whole bunch of aspects, in entertainment, in the gaming industry, in schools, in politics, in sports. Everywhere there's going to be somebody there's just some department that's just like, nah, God and Jesus, especially Jesus, nah, bro, we can't have that. And I'm glad that she was able to get to a point, instead of, cowering back and feeling hurt. Not that everybody's supposed to be like that, because everybody takes care of their situations differently. But I'm glad that she was able to be in that mindset, to realizing that instead of shying away from the backlash, she used that conviction and evaluated herself and trying to find efforts to make that type of change, and thus was able to come up with money in order to change her model because of the way that it was looking, and to try and make it in a sense to where it's not being tempting to other people, because a lot of her following come in to see the model, to see, all the sexual aspects of it. And so she removed that, because she's not going to sit here and be a stumbling block to other people. And that's also in the Bible as well. We cannot continue to live in this life and just do things because we want to, but it's causing somebody else to sin. That's not okay. Remember, we're here to live together. So if I'm doing something and it's making you feel some type of way, then maybe I should stop. You know what I'm saying? But if you're purposefully overexpressive in how you appear in certain areas, like with dudes, buff dudes, and got tight shirts, and women with their oversized breasts and their huge badonkadonks and all that stuff, you're intentionally drawing attention, and you can't tell me that you're not, because why would you want that? Because you say you like it? No, you're intentionally drawing attention to specific people, just as somebody that you weren't trying to get the attention to just so happens to be getting that attention. And so you think, well, it's not my fault that they're, yes, it is, because this is what you're doing. We can't be trying to grab people based off of our appearances and whatnot. And we can't be trying to grab people based off of what we do if it comes at the hindrance of another person. Just like with a lot of these YouTubers that out here pulling pranks, they're causing a lot of people a lot lot of stress in some of these pranks. We shouldn't be. And there was one YouTuber that came out in his faith and was, or I don't know if he came out in his faith, but he realized that a lot of the pranks that he was doing was causing a lot of stress to the people he was doing the pranks to, just to get videos out. We shouldn't be living like this. And the last thing that I want to say, like I said, this video is already going to be long, and I'm sorry, guys, but I just had to say everything because this was a lot. The last thing that I want to say is that in the gaming industry, it's tough. Saying that you're a Christian, or at least when I was heavy into gaming, saying that you're a Christian in the gaming industry was kind of like being black and being Republican. Was kind of like back in the day in the 2000s and stuff when you were in high school, liking anime and whatnot. That was not a cool thing to have, and people got on you for it. So you kept that to yourself. And I'm glad that she came out and said her testimony. And I looked at her channel. Apparently she's been doing stuff for a while in regards to, Bible studies and whatnot, which is great. And I love that. But the gaming industry, I think the reason that they feel like this is, one, because different faiths. I mean, everybody could like gaming, but we could all have our different faiths, which is fine. But then we also have those that may have also grown up in Christian backgrounds, but have a lot of church hurt, like she mentioned. We cannot associate the church hurt from what people did to you than what God is trying to give us, which is our salvation. We just have to accept it. And so when it comes to the gaming industry, we need to realize that there are specific ways that we should be living the way that God had intended us to live, and we should follow that. I'm not saying that you can't game. I'm not saying that you can't watch anime. I'm not saying that you can't like dragons. Like she said, I don't see nothing wrong with dragons. I don't see nothing wrong with, animals and stuff like that. But depending on the context, if you have like a goat's head and you're wearing a goat's mask for demonic reason, is very specific, then yes, that is a problem. But the thing is, how deep are you into it, and how much of that is taken away from you giving God glory throughout your days? But at the end of the day, we need to realize that as Christians, we need to realize that there are people out there in the world that need Christ. But because of the way that we as Christians live our lives and how we poke at them, they're being driven away from it. So we need to do better, and we need to change our lives and live the Christian way that everybody needs to be living, and be a community, but also hold each other accountable. A lot of people don't like accountability, but once they're hit with that conviction, then they'll turn around. But at the same time, we need to be living the way that Christ wants us to live. And that's all I have, guys. This is a very long video. I'm sorry that I've been rambling on so much, but I just had to bring this out there because this is beautiful. More people need to hear about this. More people need to hear that you can be a Christian and still game and like to game. You can. I still game whenever I had the time. I just had to switch gaming back a little bit on the priority list because now I have a family. Now I have work. Now I'm trying to get my health back and not be just a sack of bones. And now I have YouTube as well. So gaming kind of got to take a back seat in order for me to progress in life and be able to help other people, because at the end of the day, when I'm gaming, yeah, there's a community, but at the end of the day, a lot of it has to do with me and my selfish desires. I just hope this blesses somebody. Please, guys, like, subscribe to help this channel out. I'll leave the link in the description to this video so that if you just want to send this video and help her channel out, which would be great, go ahead and do it, guys. Let's go ahead and continue to live this life, a Christian life. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Take it easy. Peace.